Hi, thank you. So Social TV, let's go ahead and click that one more forward. Social TV, here we are, the clicker. It's the return of the family room, really. Where are we? There we go. Cool. Just in a way of getting a quick read on this, could you guys shout out names of companies you know of in the social TV space? And Kevin, can you try to plot it somewhere along that, anywhere from the directory to discovery to social to TV? Yeah, just kind of take it. Miso, okay, we got Miso. Z-Box. Viggle. Get Glue. Keep going. Into Now. Vimeo. Where's Robert? Anybody gonna say Twitter? Facebook? Twitter, yeah. So what's really amazing is we run out of gas pretty quickly in this space. Even though there's hundreds of companies in the social TV space and making it a space, we run out pretty quickly. There's, as we like to, thanks a lot, Kevin. Vanna White, please. Thanks you. Little hand for her. What we find out really quickly is that it's this is a really nascent space here, and in fact, I think even before it gets cooked up in a full space, we're going to stop calling it social TV, and it's just going to be how we do things. So in the meantime, let's take a look a little bit about what we're trying to do. So I'm Mark Silva, I'm SVP of Emerging Platforms at Anthem Worldwide. We're going to talk about defining social TV space. We're going to talk about influences in social TV specifically for entertainment, and some thoughts I have in terms of how, if it really is that volatile, how do you engage an ecosystem and make some bets? So defining the space, everybody sees the Lumascape slides. Somewhere deep in there, there's social TV. But in fact, if you start looking at some of the research and some of the other areas, you get to a better view of the ecosystem. And here's a little bit of a zoom in. So basically, the simple definition would be companies that define their focus on social TV discovery or companion apps that are trying to enable a better TV guide, recording, and viewing experience. We haven't even taken into the gaming or gamification area yet. And they make TV more social, so a lot of the chatter that's around there. And then the guys that are really actually on the front end that are doing some great stuff are the social analytics folks, the guys like TrendRR and the Bluefin, of course. And you'll see some of those on that slide right there. So, basically breaking it down actually in its elements, if you think about social being our closest, most intimate, influential connections, and TV being scale, as said earlier this morning, 2 commas without the drama, and maybe perhaps our last legal addiction. There's this kind of argument that brands going to rush into a space called social TV because really TV is where they spend most of their 6.5% of their total A&P budget, et cetera, right? 6.5% of their total budget on marketing. So somewhere in the middle, though, that intersection is where everything else is. And I'm going to be talking a lot about mobile as it relates to social TV because that's really the largest influence of what's happening. So TV, massive audience, social audience plus their network. So really quick definition, basically all the technology around supporting social TV. Interestingly enough, I did a little experiment this morning. I tapped a number of you guys and said, hey, what's social TV? And a lot of us are kind of trying to define the space. Don't worry, that's pretty much the case because that's what happens with nascent emerging spaces. But to give you an idea of the size of the prize, this whole infotainment area is considered to be about a $3 trillion marketplace. And you've heard a number of stats today, anywhere from 44% of folks who are using smartphones. That was from April. It's actually 50% now. We've hit the tipping point. And we've also got Nielsen talking about 90% of smartphone and tablet owners actually using them. So the reason why I bring that up is this is a major influencer to the ecosystem. And because you're going to go back and your boss is going to say, hey, can you give me some really smart slides? I thought I'd throw a couple of those in there. And you, of course, download for free on SlideShare. So this is a great infographic for in terms of an eye chart. But what you see is pie charts and ecosystems. But I think the most telling pie chart is something that Jeff Cross from Google Ventures said was 70% of those companies aren't going to be there in a couple of years. They're either going to be acquired or they call it acqui-hired. acquired, basically hiring for talent by some of the big companies. 20% of them are going to go into obscurity, and 10% of them are actually going to be breakout. So how do you find those 10%? And we want to give you some thoughts about that. Then also, this is kind of how we want it all to be. The visual, motion, voice input that Bettina was just talking about, augmented reality of everything, and this idea of massive data becoming information symmetry, where I actually, there's almost precognition, spider-like senses going on with my VCR that automatically records something that I might even be interested in. But this is what it's like today. So this is one of the issues, is we want it to be super slick, but it's also kind of ugly, and we tend to objectify things quite a bit. So until we see the example of greatness in the social TV space, I think it's not going to hit us over the head. But I do want to assure you that the underlying technologies and the internet stack and the activities that are going around social and TV are massive. And like I said, hundreds of startups working on solving and making it better. So some of the influences for it is adoption of smartphones, tablets, and smart TVs. No-brainer, right? It's almost like watching, Neo in the Matrix, but instead of bullets going past them, it's smartphones, right? We see this where it's going. We know it's happening. It's here. It's the mass reach and engagement of social media. So people always wondered, could digital be a branding medium? Absolutely. When you get to 20 million people, Dancing with the Stars-like audiences, but playing Farmville every day, you've got scale and you've got audience. It's got the installed social TV consumers. It's got the amount of new and second screen applications, which I downplay a little bit. The correlation of, as we even heard from Twitter just earlier, the correlation of social TV metrics to ratings and revenues, the level of investments in startups and companies. Do not underestimate what a lot of really smart Silicon Valley money and VC money can do to making this space happen. It's happened with every space that's preceded it. And the integration of social actually into TV, so you've seen the hashtags. So big brands are coming out to the Valley to try to experiment with this. We'll talk a little bit more about how Hollywood may want to come to the Valley to do some more of this, because I know Hollywood is actually out in a way. But the real interesting part of the story is that there's a lot of innovation going around the box. So when broadband hit 50%, YouTube happened, right? And at $1.7 billion and 63 employees, everybody thought that was an absolute waste of money, right? Today, as you look at 300 million video views just on mobile alone, in 1 week, larger than any single aggregated network on mobile video on YouTube, you say that was a pretty good buy, wasn't it? Well, same thing with Instagram at 1 billion for 13, a little bit better premium, but still, it happened because they optimized specifically to mobile, and that experience was that great. So when social TV's tipping point moment arrives, what we want to find out is what is the new behavior and new amplification of the devices that we have, whether it's broadband enablement or 5 to 8 megapixel cameras on smartphones. What is the tipping point that's going to be driving this space called social TV? So one thing I keep on obsessing on in terms of the tablet is that we talked about lean forward with the TV, lean back with the TV, lean forward with the PC and the desktop, and we're talking about the tablet being the cuddle-up medium. And this is something Jason Calacanis talked about. And if you look at the kind of things that are just going off the charts in terms of tablets, you've got books, TV shows, magazines, and movies. Basically, Hollywood is what people are consuming on tablets. So that's why it's really radical, and it's an important part of the experience to where we're going. The other thing is it fits into every other part of your life, even when you're not sitting down and watching TV. So what 49% of people are actually using their tablets in the bathroom, and a fair amount of that is with seat down, just so you know. So the other thing is social TV is an accretive opportunity. Just as mobility, you see these mobility numbers, it's really interesting. You look at this and you see that landlines peaked at 1.3 billion somewhere around 2006, and you see mobile at 4.7 billion. Where did all those phones come from? Where did all that phone use come from? And I think we can say the same thing will happen of TV. So this social plus TV is going to be an accretive opportunity as well. So specifically for entertainment, obviously you guys all know the story about Stephen Levitan talking about how they actually watched as the show would air on the East Coast, what lines were hitting on the West Coast using Twitter. It's a told story. And now there's companies like Bluefin and Trinidad that actually put in analytics around that. Obviously, Twitter is doing that, just announced that today, that they're doing it as well, which is great to see. Even small shows, even little shows, get a ton of engagement around them. And this is kind of the question that I think Ira and a couple of other people raised earlier today, which is, do you even need your own website anymore? The answer is yes, but we can talk about that later. But look at that, 4.5 million likes for a little secret life of American teenager, and 50,000 people talking about it right this moment. That's pretty hot. So adjusting to the new currency, Mary Meeker's slides, I don't know, everybody downloaded the Mary Meeker slides? Yeah, outstanding. You've got, if you haven't, there'll be a link in the end that you have to go to. She has about 80 slides that you can read in 20 minutes. It's outstanding. But she talks about this adjusting to a new currency of the offline dollars becoming digital dimes, becoming mobile pennies, or even micropayments. and you're seeing the Facebook ARPU going down. You see the Google cost per click going down in mobile. They're getting massive reach. They're getting great growth, but the revenues, long-term revenues, may be constrained. However, I think we all know where this is going as well, which is when you get the hyper-relevance of someone in a single location actively converting to purchase, you're going to see some real valuation and love for this stuff. So the good news is that this social TV space and mobile's super effective for your marketing programs, as we heard over and over again today. The other thing that's really the silver lining, and it kind of makes you respect what Disney did, even if they haven't fully seen the full fruits of the Playdom acquisition, even the Club Penguin and the Tapulous, I think is probably doing their best for them, which was definitely an acqui-hire. They've done an amazing job with some of it. They're actually growing IP around ARPU, around the average revenue per user, and that's really an interesting place for entertainment to be looking as a real fast growth area. So a lot of people say TV, why are we attracted to TV? And the argument is that's basically like the internet but with more zeros. And so it is really interesting for people who have actual TV strategies to say, hey, it'd be great if I could just shift some of that dollar, as Doug Neal was talking about earlier, into social TV. So again, we'd love to be able to spend more money here. The problem is that the infrastructure, I don't believe, is ready yet. I think it's largely nascent. The top internet categories in terms of ad spends, the other kind of thing I wanted to say to entertainment is, even though you guys have been aggressive in integrating inventive marketing and innovative marketing into each of your programs, you also see that the percent of spend is largely experimental. And if you look at the people who are spending the most, you look at retail, you look at financial services, telecom, they've all been disintermediated by the internet, right? VoIP's been disintermediated, Amazon with retail, on and on, right? And to date, our financial models in entertainment have held pretty true, and we haven't had to be disintermediated. I think that's going to change with social TV. So I think it's going to be the time for not just creating better marketing, but to create new markets. And by the way, this all is available for you. It's already posted on SlideShare/Mark Silva. So I wanted to just propose and end with a little thought about, if it's so volatile, how do you engage in this ecosystem? And how do you, we like to call it a geekosystem, how do you actually take some bets rather than just looking at it as media bets and get out ahead of it? And so what we see is big brands coming out to the Valley. I'm going to show you 3 or 4 ways they're doing it. They're either investing, they're acquiring, and they're actually setting up shop. So today, you think about it, capital and technology have very good relationships. Your agencies, we heard, we heard some agencies being really applauded for doing a great job down here by a client. It's great to hear. But a lot of times now there's a little bit of a broken piece when you try to put all of this together. So what we really need to do, we call this the Geekosystem. You look at agency and marketer, you look at events and media, and you look at capital and technology. And right there in the middle is this fiery spot that's undefined yet, but it's being defined by a lot of outliers. And our core thesis is that the greatest growth in value creation, capital creation, and even culture, as we're seeing it, we're going to see the annoying orange, incredibly annoying, incredibly funny, created on the internet, right? Created for the internet, and yet eclipsing some of the value. So some of the greatest cultural value being created in places like Facebook and Zynga, et cetera. And it's going to outstrip the value of anything that's come before it. So you see Walmart Labs actually making acquisitions like Cosmix. You see Walt Disney with its social. If you think about social gaming and these social TV, suddenly you have a new reason for people to come back. You have cross-channel marketing. They're getting learning into precision marketing in a way that's off the charts. That we, even Michelle from Warner, you're a precision marketer. Absolutely, you probably are. But the kind of stuff that they're doing and they're learning in the halls of Zynga and Playdom and Playfish are just phenomenal. So I can't recommend fast enough for you to engage those folks. The big examples, PepsiCo and Unilever, are two of the largest limited partners in Physic Ventures, and they just took a position in a media property called Yumly. American Express established a $100 million fund just to fund startups with payments. And you see companies like Anheuser-Busch, really a St. Louis beer company, setting up Beer Garage out in Palo Alto right next to Facebook. Why? Because, well, first of all, their CEO, Brito, is a Stanford grad, and he brings his execs out every year for a week to basically peel back their eyes and get out of the cave of St. Louis. But they also created a little outpost called Beer Garage where they're open for innovation. So there's a whole spectrum of ways, and I'd invite anybody from here to do the same up there. We'll even help you do so. It's the way to see that every single weekend there's hackathons going on, there's events going on. The water cooler in the valley in terms of what's going on in terms of innovation is accessible to you, available to you, and you really need to, even as I need to come down here and spend more time in Hollywood, vice versa, I think we need to get out of our caves. This is just an example. Shopkick was literally mentored by P&G, by Kraft, and by Best Buy, and every single week they weren't taking a board position or even an equity position. Every single week they would meet with them to help them mature as companies, and I'm sure that some of these social TV companies could absolutely benefit from the same sort of mentorship from you. So for us, the new way of looking at media is maybe more as a biz dev approach. Maybe the elephant in the room would be the big brands, but the big brands are now showing up with better tools and better weapons than they ever have before, and the big brands are there looking to help new startups become more adaptive, to be more advisory, to be partners in strategic and validation. So I don't know if that answers the question about, what are the bets in social TV as much as it answers the question about how do you actually engage this ecosystem. And I want to end with just one last thought. Oops, nice little fiery transition. Last weekend we did this big brand hackathon up in Northern California in San Francisco. It was one of the hottest days, so we turned up the heat on them. And at the big brand hackathon, we had 150 mobile hackers developing over social and local APIs, literally trying to answer the question of how do we become relevant to this new ecosystem, rather than just creating great content. How do we become more nimble, more available to this new ecosystem? And so when I challenge all of you who raised your hands and said your agency folks, what do we make today and how do we bring value to our clients? I think doing events like this are going to be the ways that we do that. I can tell you that part of the outcomes of this were 40 apps for the Home Depot and Kraft Foods. And I guess probably one of the greatest stories, a 17-year-old high schooler took the grand prize with $10,500. When she went to present it on stage the next day at the Social Local Conference, Emily White, the head of Facebook Places, offered her internships on the spot. So it was one of those kind of Hollywood stories I had to bring down here to talk about. So how do you, in emerging volatile spaces, engage this ecosystem? But the one thing I am absolutely convinced of is that you must do this. Oh, huge thanks to another ecosystem. See, these are some of the folks that helped pull together some of the stats around social TV. And then some information on it's SocialTV if you want to, at bit.ly if you want to download the Prezzo and a bunch of bookmarks to this kind of content. Any questions?
Great.
We got one over there.
Thank you.
I've got a big voice. About 30 or 300 slides back, there was this moment where you had, it was Blockbuster versus Netflix.
Yep.
And yet Netflix, I think right now itself is quite vulnerable. And so it's not just about
Yeah, so the nice thing about engaging an ecosystem, whether it's through hackathons or through a lot of these mass experiments, which I think Hollywood does a pretty good job of, specifically from a media perspective, is that you get to make a lot of bets and not put it all in one. But I would say that Facebook Blue is going to be with us the same way that Google Rainbow is, and I believe that the Twitter Bird's going to be with us for a long time. I think we all believe that. So there are some platforms, and the definition we use in the Valley of a platform is an essential service to millions of people that others are willing to creatively layer over the top of. So you heard Robert talking about the hashtag and the retweet as being a creation by other people over their platform. So I would be looking for those characteristics in terms of things that are going to emerge as real platforms, because platforms are the longer term bet. These other things, which are little startups and cute apps and stuff like that, are probably an essential part of the stack, but it's the platform that's going to be there for the longer play.
Hey, Mark, Brendan Gelman. Oh, Starcom MediaVest, sorry. When we do get to the tipping point, we do get to a point where social TV is mainstream, and not just on the mobile devices, but also on the TV sets. And that could be however long it is. But curious if you have any perspective yet on how that might change the programming as well as the distribution strategies from the networks and the studios.
Yeah, so the nice thing about the internet is it's neatly built upon itself. It eats its previous versions. And so there's some tactics that you're using right now that are absolutely going to be essential to informing that stack. So we heard a lot about distributing a lot of content in a lot of different places in a lot of different forms. Earlier as a tactic of going to market. Those will still make you relevant on the mobile web or the social TV stack as well. There's going to also be new algorithms that we're going to have to contort ourselves to. And there's a company up in San Francisco called Digit. Everybody heard of Digit? D-I-J-I-T? Right now, don't look at them for who they are right now. Their next version of what they're coming out with, right now they're basically a better remote control. But the next version of it is actually going to be almost like a Pinterest little rapid discovery that actually taps into your social graph. And so it already knows what kind of things you talk about. It knows I ride motorcycles. It knows that you dress up in Thor costumes on the weekend. It knows these things about us, and therefore will actually offer up different things. So that idea of discovery is really, I think, one of the largest areas, which is a great opportunity for entertainment marketers, because we use search for exactly that same reason, right? For discovery, right? So I think that's going to be one of the larger areas of it, and that's when it's going to get better. I'm totally agnostic about whether it happens on the TV box or not. In fact, that's what I think I love most about the Valley is, it's not the mobile phone carriers who are setting the rules. It's the Valley who's setting the new rules, and I think we're already there with that level of tablet and smartphone around your TV. That's undeniable. That's not going to change. I think the shift to power has already gone there, so how do you inform that mobile ecosystem is sort of the underlying theme of what I was saying.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Very good.